Oh, good afternoon, everyone, and all of you visiting, come sharing with us for the Dallas Literary Festival presented by SMU. I am Sandaria Faye Smith, and it's been my pleasure to bring to you 3 days of programming. And now we're in the afternoon. It's time for my champagne. And I want to introduce to you the Convivial Fiction Writers Fellows. And the host, the moderator for this panel is Renee Simms, who is a great friend of mine. We're alumni from ASU. She has a wonderful book out that's doing well. And I'll let her tell you the name of this. And so I won't take up any time because I know you want to hear the presenters for today. So welcome, Renee Simms, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Sandria Faye Smith, and Greg Brownderville, and everyone else who's involved with organizing the Dallas Literary Festival. Thank you for the opportunity for the four of us to have this conversation. This is Trends in Black Fiction, and I want to start with the words of our panelists. These are the opening lines, first lines of some of their poetry and fiction. From the story Ceiling by Desiree Cooper. The law firm was no place for a woman, law review or otherwise. From the poem Mardi Gras in East Lansing by Brian Gilmore. Somehow, someway, we have to hold on to ourselves up here. And from the story Jael by Deesha Philyaw. I think the pastor's wife was a freak before she got into the church. So I just love these writers for their use of language and ideas and the way they draw you in from the very start of their pieces. But in addition to their language and ideas, I admire these writers because of their filmmaking, their activism, board memberships, legal practice, and the way that all of the above demonstrates their deep commitment to the Black community. So we're going to talk this afternoon about fiction and community. I'll read their bios. They'll each read for a few minutes. I'll ask them to respond to 2 questions, and then we'll open it up to have a conversation with everyone who's present. So the first reader will be Desiree Cooper. Desiree Cooper is a 2015 Kresge Artist Fellow and Pulitzer Prize nominated journalist. Her flash fiction collection, Know the Mother, is a 2017 Next Generation Indie Book Award winner. Cooper's flash fiction has appeared in the Best Small Fictions 2018, Forward, 21st Century Flash Fiction, Electric Literature, River Teeth, and in Choice Words, Writers on Abortion. Her essay, We Have Lost Too Many Wigs, was listed as a notable essay in the Best American Essays 2019. After Des, we'll hear from Brian G. Gilmore. Brian G. Gilmore is a native of Washington, D.C., poet, public interest lawyer, and author of 4 collections of poetry, including the latest, Come See About Me, Marvin, a 2020 Michigan Notable Books recipient. He has written for the Washington Post, the New York Times, Jazz Times, and is a longtime contributing writer for the Progressive magazine. He has also been an NAACP Image Award nominee and a Hurston Wright Legacy Award nominee. He is a Convivial Fellow and a Cave Canem Fellow and currently teaches social justice law at Michigan State University. And after Brian, we will hear from Deesha Philyaw. Deesha Philyaw's debut short story collection, The Secret Lives of Church Ladies, won the 2020-2021 Story Prize and was a finalist for the 2020 National Book Award for Fiction, the 2021 PEN/Faulkner Award for Fiction, and a 2020 LA Times Book Prize, the Art Seidenbaum Award for First Fiction. The Secret Lives of Church Ladies focuses on Black women, sex, and the Black church, and is being adapted for television by HBO Max with Tessa Thompson executive producing. Deesha is also a Convivial Fiction Fellow. And with that, I'll turn it over to Des.
Did my bio say that I was a Convilio Fiction Fellow? Because if it didn't, it's my bad. And I am. And that's why I'm so happy to be here. And thanks, Renee, for inviting me on this panel, and for Sandaria for having such a successful, amazing festival this weekend. It's been amazing. So I'm going to read quickly from my book. It's a collection of flash fiction called Know the Mother. The themes all deal with the intersections of race, of gender, and class. This one is called In the Ginza. Bobby Jean pushed the stroller through the crowded market and silently rehearsed her textbook Japanese. Ohio, pronounced just like Ohio, for good morning. Gomen, for I'm sorry. Domo arigato, a lot of syllables for a simple thanks. She was elegant and chestnut-skinned, her thick hair pinned in a French roll, her hands kid-gloved. No one would recognize who she was beneath the polished cotton dress with sharp darts and perfect pleats, a country girl whose childhood had been crowded with big Virginia pines and bigger dreams. She had quickly completed her mission in college to find a husband in the first year, and left behind the backwoods town that always smelled of pig shit and sawdust. Now here she was, the wife of an airman first class, raising her brand new baby in post-war Japan. Bobby Jean leaned over the sturdy pram and adjusted her daughter's pink summer blanket. It had seemed like a good idea to take a morning stroll off base into downtown Fukuoka. But the market air was thick with dried squid and seaweed, and the push of women with their wicker baskets made the pram feel hulking and pretentious. The Japanese Oksans never used strollers. Their babies were always lashed to their backs, even as they hunched in rice paddies. Maybe we should go home now, Bobby Jean said to the dozing child, who began to suckle the air at the sound of her mother's voice. Bobby Jean had just turned toward home when she caught the smell of roasted sweet potatoes, their syrup dripping onto the hot coals. For a second, her stomach quivered, hungry for the familiar. She steered the stroller toward a group of kimonoed old women, their heads wrapped in blue and white scarves. Ichi dozo. Bobby held up a one-fingered request while bowing slightly. The women tittered. The plump one put down her paper fan and went to claim a potato from the iron pot where they sat cooling. You, baby child? The other woman asked, peering into the stroller. Bobby Jean removed the delicate blanket so that the women could take a peek. Her little girl had been barely 6 pounds at birth, and even now, 3 months later, she was still as fragile as porcelain, her skin pale against the dark curl of her silky hair. The Japanese women drew in deep breaths, and Bobby smiled proudly. Indeed, her baby was beautiful. But instinct made Bobby Jean's skin prickle as the old women kept pointing at the pram and debating. The plump one spat with finality into a tin can by her wooden chair. You, baby-chan? She asked Bobby Jean again, and this time the question felt like a cross-examination. Hi, Bobby said, putting her hand over her breast. My baby-chan. Ah. The women nodded at each other knowingly and began to discuss something again, first pointing at Bobby and then at the sleeping child. Irritated, Bobby dug into her coin purse and then held out some bronze yen coins. The women ignored her, clucking like hens. Tears began to rise instinctively, but Bobby Jean resisted the urge to back away. This wasn't the rural South where her uppityness would cost her life. This was post-war Japan, and her husband was protecting both his country and theirs. She had every right to be in the Ginza buying a roasted sweet potato. You got GI? One of the women crept closer. Her teeth were rotted nubs, and her skin was tanned and leathery. She pointed to the baby and then to Bobby. You got white GI? Bobby Jean stepped back, understanding the accusation. Her daughter's pale cheeks and cat-slick hair were scarlet letters. Even here, halfway around the world, a decent colored woman was easily taken for a whore. Without answering, she paid quickly and took the warm yen. The smell was suddenly sickly sweet. Until then, Bobby Jean hadn't realized how much it reminded her of home. Then I'm going to read one more. This is from an anthology called Choice Words, Writers on Abortion. One thing I love about this collection is that it has fiction writers, really a diverse. It includes Gwendolyn Brooks, Thalias Moss, who are poets, also Langston Hughes, just Lucille Clifton, many people, Black writers, whose voices aren't often included in the conversation about women's reproductive rights and abortion. So this is called First Response. The moment we read the stick, some of us buckled on the bathroom floor. Having only bled once, we thought it was impossible. Having bled forever, we shook our graying heads and thought, this is no miracle. Susan, who at 14 still slept with her favorite doll, bit back the tears and started packing her bags. We knew our mothers would not believe us. Abby bought a ticket to New York to secretly take care of it. We locked ourselves in the bathroom, sobbing while kids banged on the door, Mommy, please come out. For some of us, 3 healthy children were enough. For others, a special needs child was one too many. One day, we would have many children. One day, decades later, we would still be child-free. The ultrasound technician drew in a deep breath and did not let it out. We feared a perfect baby. Undecided, we waited too long. Decisive, we were instantly clear about what to do. We were happy about it until we weren't. We borrowed cash from our friends so that it wouldn't show up on the insurance bill. We had no insurance. We had insurance, but the DC was covered only for miscarriages. Brittany's college roommates threw her a baby shower with vodka served in sippy cups. Our aunt said, you're lucky you won't be butchered in someone's basement like I was. Lynn was dropped off by her stepfather along with her suitcase and her cat. We called in sick at the firm, even though it was tax season. Mary's boyfriend slapped her and pushed her out of the car. You better have dinner ready tonight, and your fat ass better not still be pregnant. A bus, a cab, the heat, a bike, the snow, the traffic. We were late, but we made it. We were 2 hours early because we couldn't sit at home alone. In the waiting room, we would not return a gaze. Our men held us tightly. Jan nervously fiddled with a ring from her make-believe fiancé. We were by ourselves and puffy-faced. Diane was already showing every time she seemed to show a few weeks earlier. One couple argued with the receptionist. They had driven from another state but didn't know about the 24-hour waiting period. Some of us let tears river, while others slumped in pink chairs and listened to our iPods. We were horrified to be with these people. Full of shame, we fingered a rosary. Full of anger, we cursed God. Relax. The kind nurse held our hand as the doctor readied. You're going to be fine. We wondered if we would ever be fine again. Annie quaked. The doctor took off his mask and said, I'm not doing this. You're not ready. We listened to the vacuum. We didn't know what hit us. When the room went silent, we rose up in wonder. It had been so easy. The nausea was over at last. For Kita, the nausea from the chemo would go on. We wondered if we would ever forgive ourselves. We didn't need anybody's forgiveness. Every recliner in the recovery room was full. It was over. We looked up. Many smiled compassionately. Some felt theirs was the only good reason. Liz, who still had 3 AP exams, didn't know who she was anymore. We wanted to hold hands. We wanted to get the hell away from these losers. We wanted to cocoon in our beds. We longed for our mothers. Some lovers promise we'll try again when I get a job. Cindy wouldn't have to call off her Paris vacation. Carrie forgot to ask if she could hustle that night. We realized how much our husbands loved us. Jenna had to wait until Child Protective Services came to pick her up. We were relieved that our grandchildren wouldn't see our swelling stomachs. Joyce didn't have sex until she was married 8 years later. Trish went back to work like nothing ever happened. We made a donation every anniversary. We were pregnant with memory for the rest of our lives. We never thought about it again. Thanks. It looks like we're having technical difficulties. Brian, can you try again? Because it let me
I'm working
unmute.
on it, guys.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Brian, can you unmute
I
now?
just unmute her.
Okay.
Yep, I did.
Who? Renee is. Yeah.
Okay, I'm doing it. I don't know what just happened.
Now Brian's muted again.
Sorry about that.
Is it all right?
You're all unmuted. How happened? We weren't even touching it.
Keep
Oh,
your hands
sorry.
off your computer.
Okay,
I
thank you.
wasn't even touching it. What just fucking
I
happened?
knew I shouldn't have been. I was like, I got it.
We just got a warning.
I was like, I knew I
We can hear you guys,
Okay,
Susan and
right.
Sandria.
What the hell just happened, Sandria?
Are they unmuted again? No, they did it again, Susan.
How is this happening?
I don't know.
We're not even touching the computer. Someone
I'm
else is
coming.
doing this.
I don't know what's happening. I don't know.
You unmute yourself.
I don't know what's happening, guys.
Okay.
Okay, there you go.
I got him again.
Okay.
Okay. That remind me of one of those party. Y'all remember those party phones? Like 20 people talking. All right, so thank you for everybody for inviting me in. It's a pleasure to be here with these great writers, who are all of whom I know very well. Just briefly, my book is called Come See About Me, Marvin, on Wayne State University Press. And in fact, Renee's book and Desiree's book are all on Wayne State University Press. So go there and track down our books. I'm going to read fiction from a collection that's supposedly finished, and then it started up again. And it's about a lawyer called Funk Frazier, who been trying to developing this character for years now. But the collection is about his development and his sort of life as a lawyer. He's looking for justice and love, mostly love, And this is kind of like the backstory of him a little bit. This story is more based on his father, and it's when he is a young teenager. And this story is called The Disciples of Justice. And his first section is called Edie's. You got to make sure your tuna is albacore. Pops was holding up a tuna sandwich as he said that, like he was looking at a painting by Archibald Motley in a Harlem museum. Tuna on pumpernickel, pickle, mayo, tomato was all he ate back then during the trial of Jamal Fernandez. Pops, my father. Pops chomped down, set the sandwich aside, opened his briefcase, and then pulled out a yellow writing pad, started making notes. Pops was always making notes. Every day of the trial of Jamal Fernandez, Pops made notes from the first day to the last. Jamal, a 17-year-old black boy who killed 2 white police officers, was his world way back when. Jamal said the officers were beating him some kind of bad.
Brian isn't muted.
Like he was an animal.
No.
Jamal didn't really know what happened because at some point he said he blacked out. I could see it all. Wasn't but 18 myself that summer many years back, just a year older than Jamal. Jamal and I connected from the start like we knew each other because of that. From the very first moment.
They just muted themselves for, he's mute now. I don't know what's going on.
I'm not mute.
No, he's unmuted now. Oh no.
I don't know what to do.
What's happening.
She's just like talking.
Brian, we can still hear you.
Oh, I mean, I could hear you though.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I don't know if I should start over or not. Okay,
Keep going.
I'll just start over. I only give it like half a page. So this is called The Disciples of Justice. You got to make sure your tuna is albacore. Pops was holding up a tuna sandwich as he said that, like he was looking at a painting by Archibald Motley in a Harlem museum. Tuna on pumpernickel, pickle, mayo, tomato was all he ate back then during the trial of Jamal Fernandez. Pops, my father. Pops chomped down, set the sandwich aside, opened his briefcase, and then pulled out a yellow writing pad, started making notes. Pops was always making notes. Every day of the trial of Jamal Fernandez, Pops made notes from the first day to the last. Jamal, a 17-year-old black boy who killed 2 white police officers, was his world way back when. Jamal said the officers were beating him some kind of bad, like he was an animal. Jamal didn't really know what happened because at some point he said he blacked out. I could see it all. Wasn't but 18 myself that summer many years back, just a year older than Jamal. Jamal and I connected from the start like we knew each other because of that. From the very first moment I went with my father to talk to him in some dank jail cell in Hyattsville, Maryland. Jamal told us that first visit that some police officer was beating him, and that officer now dead was named Hubie McHale, beating him something vicious inside that police station. Thought he was going to kill me. I tried to cover up, but he was just beating me. Wasn't anything strange or odd about what Jamal said that day. Hyattsville police had a rep on the streets. Pops nodded as Jamal spoke. Didn't even write anything down. Just stared into Jamal's eyes and looked at him like he often looked at me when I was growing up. It was like Jamal all of a sudden was his son. He wanted Jamal to know all was well. You can talk if you want. You can cry. We were just passing through. Me and Morris, my older brother, on our way back to the city. Morris was driving. He had bought a used car at some auction. I rode along. Car had a broken taillight. They jammed us for a broken light. Then said we robbed someone. It was all made up. Next thing I knew, we were at the police station and the officer was yelling and screaming in my face and smacking me around like I was a toy. He just got more and more angry and hit me harder and harder. What was the last thing you remember? My father asked Jamal that first day. getting kicked in my balls. That's when I blacked out. Pops and I knew the rest of it. When a bunch of other police officers busted into the interrogation room, Jamal had Mikhail's gun in his hand, and Mikhail and another officer were dead. We came to Edie's every day from the very first day of the trial. Me, Pops, and Jamal. That was it. Came for lunch, and then afterwards, in the late afternoon or evening, for coffee or juice to decompress. Eat again, maybe. The post-mortem, Pops called it. He loved it. We'd sit there with a cup of coffee and talk through every moment of the trial. Jamal and I listened. A few other regulars who were allowed in listened. And Edie, who was always there making food and drink, would listen as well. Edie's. It wasn't even a real diner. Not just anyone could come there and enter that space for that reason. It was just a little getaway spot, off the road, back in the woods a few miles from the city of Hyattsville and the Hyattsville courthouse where the trial was going down. Edie was Edie Dominique, a friend of Pop's going way back. Her house was like some sort of club, but not really. Mostly it was just Edie's. And Edie really could cook. People in a slow, steady, manageable stream came by all day, ate, paid, or didn't pay, and got a moment of peace from the world outside Edie's little hot spot. Was the perfect respite for the trial and all the media coverage and protesting and police everywhere who were sure Jamal was a dirty, no-account, cold, calculated cop killer. See, Edie and I knew each other before she had all this. Ain't that right, Edie? Pop said that the first time he brought me to Edie's years before the trial. I was a little boy then. I was eating Edie's cooking when no one came here. Edie would tell you, Nat Frazier is her first customer ever. Edie laughed that day, and when Pops was around for that matter, Edie was always laughing. That is what she did when Pops showed up. Pops enthralled her and most everyone, uplifted people, made them feel better about things, weave of tales and endless chit-chat in courtrooms and out. Happiness was just around the bend, no matter how bad things seemed. Edie returned the favor to us, got us away. She and her husband, Nehemiah, offered us a safe space. Nehemiah was always out, mostly doing odd jobs, or away a few days visiting family. He kept Edie's kitchen stocked and her spot looking nice and clean all day. Place was like a juke joint, but served no booze. Edie wasn't going to give into that and ruin a good thing. You want whiskey? Go find it outside this space. All of it from the very beginning, the trial and what the trial was all about was mind-blowing. And especially, why was I even at the trial every day or at Edie's every day with Pops? Made no sense. Pops, what I know about the law? I asked him when he told me I would be at the trial working with him. Everything. Besides, jury needs to see some young black men in shirt and tie doing something other than being charged with a crime. If I had two sons, I would bring both of y'all, but I only got one. So it's you. Get ready, dress well, and not like you are going to church. Dress like you have something important to say, even though you won't have to say a word. Because this is the one, son. Nothing bigger than this case. This is Red Sea Parting Big. You will be there beside me, part of the team, even if all of you do is take notes. Pops loved the Bible. Hardly a moment went by he didn't invoke something biblical. So I was there at the trial on the first day taking notes, like he said. Then I would be with Pops at Edie's. Rose early every day that summer, showered, dressed, and came to court and sat at the table with my father and never grinned or smiled. They did what Pops did or asked me to do. Did this even though sometimes I practiced deep into the night hours or had a gig that ran after midnight with my band, Cognitive Distortion. That's right, Cognitive Distortion. We'll be dead tired from playing the music, but still I rose from my slumber and came to court. Was not going to give up my music. It was my life. Even though Pops didn't really care much, I was trying to be a musician. Was not going to let Pops down either. He told me I had to attend the trial and help. I would be there. didn't have the mental fortitude for this shit show race trial like him, but I was going to be there. So there I was right from the beginning, looking more serious than a funeral parlor director.
Thank you, Brian. Deesha, are you able to unmute? Can we enable Deesha to unmute so she can read? And thank you, Des, for your reading as well.
I'm good now. There we go. First, just thank you to Sandria and everyone affiliated with the Dallas Literary Festival for inviting us. And I'm just honored to be with my fellow Conbilio fellows, my friends. You know, when Brian said Funk Frazier, I remember first hearing Funk Frazier in 2015 at Conbilio. And so, you know, these characters, and I think about characters from Des's book and characters from Renee's book, and just they stick with us. So I'm just honored to be with you all today. I'm going to read excerpts from two of the stories in my collection. The first excerpt is from a story called Snowfall, and all you really need to know to understand the sort of context is that the narrator's name is Arletha, and when she's referring to we, she's talking about herself and her girlfriend Rhonda, her partner. And they have relocated to a cold place from the South. We were born and raised in warmer places, Georgia and Florida. Warmer too in the residual charm, polite smiles, and gentility of the white people whose ancestors owned ours. In the South, the weather does not force tears from your eyes, causing the faces of passing strangers to register worry about you for a millisecond. It's the wind, you want to tell them, but a millisecond is not enough time. In the South, the weather does not hurt you down to your bones or force you to wake up a half an hour early to remedy what has been done to your steps, your sidewalk, your driveway, and your car as you slept. But the South has hurricanes, they say. Yes, but not damn near daily, not for a full quarter of the year. You tell people up here that you're from the South, and 9 times out of 10, they say the same old thing. I'm sure you miss the sunshine. Rhonda and I both miss taking sunshine and easy morning commutes for granted. But what we really miss are the laughter and embrace of our mothers and grandmothers and aunties, kin and not kin. We miss the big oak tables in their dining rooms where, as kids in the 70s and 80s, we ate bowl after bowl of their banana pudding as they talked to each other about how much weight you gained, like you weren't even there. We miss helping them snap green beans and shell peas sitting at their kitchen tables, watching The Young and the Restless on the TV perched on the pass-through. We miss how they loved Victor Newman, hated Jill Foster, and envied Miss Chancellor and how she dripped diamonds and chandeliers. We miss their bare brown arms reaching to hang clothes on the line with wooden pins. We miss their sun tea, brewed all day in big jars on the picnic table in the backyard, then later loaded with sugar and sipped over plates of their fried chicken in the early evening. We miss lying next to them at night in their 4-poster beds with 2 soft mattresses covered by iron sheets and 3 generation-old blankets. We miss their house coats, perfumed with absorbing junior liniment and hints of the white shoulders they'd spritzed on from an atomizer that morning before church. We miss tracing the soft folds in their skins when we held hands and watched our favorite TV shows in their beds. Dallas, Dynasty, Knots Landing, and Falcon Crest. We miss how they laughed and were easy with each other, how their friendships lasted lifetimes, outlasting wayward husbands and ungrateful children. Outlasted that time Alma caught Joe cheating and she whacked him on the top of the head with the sword he'd brought back from the war, but he told the people at the hospital he didn't know who did it. Outlasted having to hide your medicine bottles in your shoes because otherwise 7 of your 9 children were liable to steal them. We miss how they seem to judge everyone but themselves. Or maybe that judgment was in the nerve pills they procured from the Chinese doctor on Bay Street who didn't ask questions. We miss their furtive cups of brown liquor on Friday and unabashed cries for Jesus come Sunday. We miss their one gold tooth that made us wonder who they had been as young women. We miss their blue crabs, the shells boiled to a blood red in wash tubs atop bricks over makeshift fires built in the yard. The wash tubs reminded us of cauldrons full of rock salt and cayenne-drenched water, bubbling and rolling, mesh bags of seasonings and halved onions and peppers floating on top, along with potatoes and ears of corn. We miss how they stood over those cauldrons like witches stirring a potion, with sweat beading on the tips of their noses and smoke swirling around their hands and wrists. They wielded long-handled spoons to press the frantic flailing crabs toward their deaths. We miss how they made our Easter dresses and pound cakes and a way out of no way. But we lost all of those things when we chose each other. Only the memories remain, which is why, even though we grew up in different places, so many of our bedtime conversations start with, "Remember when?" As we lie there in the dark with our nostalgia and nothing to distract us from it, not even each other, not anymore. And I will read the beginning of a story called Peach Cobbler. My mother's peach cobbler was so good, it made God himself cheat on his wife. When I was 5, I hovered around my mother in the kitchen, watching, close enough to have memorized all the ingredients and steps by the time I was 6, but not too close to make her yell at me for being in the way, and not close enough to see the exact measurements she used. She never wrote the recipe down. Without having to be told, I learned not to ask questions about that cobbler or about God. I learned not to say anything at all about him hunching over our kitchen table every Monday, eating plate after plate of peach cobbler, and then disappearing into the bedroom I shared with my mother. I became a silent student of my mother and her cobbler making ways. Even when I was older and no longer believed that God and Reverend Troy Neely were one and the same, I still longed to perfect the sweetness and textures of my mother's cobbler. My mother, who fed me TV dinners, baked a peach cobbler with fresh peaches every Monday, her day off from the diner where she waited tables. She always said Sunday was her Saturday and Monday was her Sunday. What I knew was that none of her days were for me. And for many of those Mondays off and on during my childhood, God, to my child's mind, would stop by and eat an entire 8x8 pan of cobbler. My mother never ate any of the cobbler herself. She said she didn't like peaches. She would shoo me out of the kitchen before God could offer me any, but I doubted he would have offered, even if I'd sat right down next to him. God was an old fat man, like a black Santa, and I imagined my mother's peach cobbler contributing to his girth. Some Mondays, God would arrive after dinner and leave as I lay curled up on the couch watching Little House on the Prairie in the living room. Other times, my mother and God would already be in the bedroom when I got home from school. I could hear moaning and pounding like a board hitting a wall as soon as I entered the house. I would shut the front door quietly behind me and tiptoe down the hall to listen outside the bedroom door. "Oh God, oh God, oh God," my mother would cry. I could hear God too, his voice low and growly saying, "Yes, yes, yes." Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Des, Brian, and Deesha. I have 2 questions that I'd like to pose to the 3 of you, and then we'll open it up to any questions that others have. So the first one is about Kimbilio fiction, which is where we all met. And for those who aren't familiar with Kimbilio, it is a writers conference that happens in July in Taos, New Mexico. And it's for writers of fiction in the African diaspora. And it was founded by David Haynes and Sandria Faye Smith. And so many tremendous writers have come through there, either teaching or as fellows. And so my question to you is, can you speak to any aspect of Conbilio and what it's meant to you?
I think one thing that newly published or unpublished Black writers don't always have is community, and they don't always recognize how, like everything else in the American way, it depends on who you know and who's there to help you. And before I went to Conbilio, I did not have a community of Black fiction writers at all. I knew a lot of poets, and that's great. But when it came time for a book and time to figure out who's going to review this book, who's going to blurb this book, I didn't know anybody. And I think more than anything, Conbilio gave me a family where I could bring emerging work and process that. I remember that peach cobbler at Conbilio. And but also people, I literally, you bond so quickly that it's just immediately you can call on them. Anywhere you go, you have a friend in the room. And that's, I think, worth its price in gold.
I guess I will add to that by saying, Conbilio has been very special for me, I could say. I mean, when I got to Conbilio, I started out as a poet and fiction writer. I was writing both, and I got fiction and poetry published in the 90s in different places. And but then I had the most success getting poetry books. And I always really wanted to get back to fiction. And that's what I remember I said that in my statement to get in Conbilio to David Haynes, that I wanted to get back, and I wanted to, as Desiree says, about having a community, being able to bounce your characters off people. And I mean, just to get to know other people. And Cave Canem has that kind of community. I was there at the second group of Cave Canem, but Conbilio was its own thing. It was much different. It's a much different atmosphere. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but it was storytellers. I mean, and my poetry is devoted a lot to narrative as well, and a lot to storytelling, and it was just great. And
I'm laughing because I'm remembering the fireside stories as well. The personal stories that people
That's
told.
why we were all laughing, yes.
So I mean, it is just great, and I met great people there. I met Deesha, I met Renee. I'd known Des before that. I mean, before we got down there, and I met so many other people who are now like these badass writers.
Right.
I'm like so happy when I see their work and hear about their books. But it was just. It's a very I hate to use magical, because that sounds kind of like that sounds like Alice in Wonderland. It's way more better than magical if you ever get a chance to go once everything clears up and things like that. And where it is, people there, they know why they're there. You know what people are looking for, and it's just a special spot. I could say about all of it. I could go into specifics, but as they say, what happens in Taos stays in Taos.
That's the truth. Did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I'm just gonna build on what Des and Brian said. To Des's point about community, that was important for me for all the reasons that she gave, but also for me as validation. Conbilio welcomes people like me who don't have MFAs alongside people who do have MFAs. Yep. And it's about the writing. It's about the storytelling. It's not about any of those other things that can be credentialing, but can be kind of gatekeeping. And that's the beauty of it. I think, as Des was saying, there are people who will help you, people who are looking to be a gateway for you and be your friends, and not the kind of gatekeeping that, we might experience in the larger, publishing industry. And then to what Brian said about getting back to the fiction. That's what I needed, because I'm not a poet, but I was really hustling. I was trying to make a living at writing. And so you get paid more if you edit, if you write nonfiction, you could get something in the New York Times and you write this essay and you're a columnist here and there. But with fiction, you know, that's not where the money was. And after I got divorced, I needed to make money at this, and I was not in school. And so fiction was like this indulgence, this thing I got to do when everything else was done. But with Kimbilio, your fiction is front and center. And I needed that. I absolutely needed that encouragement that this is worthy to do, that, you know, this is real work, this is real writing, this is real art. And I got that at Kimbilio.
So we have about 5 minutes left. And I wanna, on that last point about, you know, gatekeeping, I wanna ask a question about community. So Trisha Rose and Cornel West have this podcast where they talk about a bunch of different issues. And a recent podcast was about Gwendolyn Brooks and Lorraine Hansberry. And they were saying that these are two writers who, you know, have deep integrity when it comes to craft, but are also writers who were deeply committed to struggles of justice related to the Black community. And as I was listening to them, I was thinking of you all, like I said at the top of the event, that you came to mind. And we can expand that conversation to talk about our contemporaries who are also doing that kind of work, like Hansberry and Brooks. So who comes to your mind when you think about Black writers writing fiction or other genres who are doing stuff that you really admire on the page or in the community?
I always hate that question, because it's like your thank yous at the Academy Awards, which I know a whole lot about, that, you know, if you skip somebody, you feel dumb or you feel sad. I do want to just do an overview, and that is, I cannot believe how Black voices are everywhere. I mean, they've always been, but they're at the top of the heap. You go to genre fiction, you go to science fiction, you go to speculative fiction, you go to Afrofuturism, of course, you go to romance, you go to commercial pop fiction. I mean, one of my favorite books, it's really weird, but My Sister, the Serial Killer. Have you guys read that book?
Heard about it. Haven't read it.
It's so good. You know, I mean, it's just, if you want a beach read, if you want your mind blown, if you want to be on Mars, as you are, Renee, you know, you can't go anywhere without running into us now. And I do think that things like Kimbilio and Cave Canem, where Black communities have come together to nurture and support their writers, have so much to do with the lifting of these voices now. So that's my overall.
Yeah, it's a deep tradition. We don't want to leave names out. I'll just tell you, there are two questions that came in the chat. I know we're almost out of time, but Zuri Bryant asked, can anyone speak about their path to publishing if there's time? And then Dar Earhart said, do any of the panelists suggest furthering education beyond the BA degree? And do they suggest any schools to attend? And where are communities for newbie and hopeful writers who have yet to find a community? I'm in Arkansas.
I'll jump in. I never want to discourage anyone from a higher degree if that's where you feel called and led, but I think it's important to emphasize that it is not a requirement, and that you should really interrogate yourself with any degree. What is it that I think degree is going to do for me? And then talk to people. If you're Black, talk to Black people who have done that to see what that experience is. And I think if you, specifically with an MFA, it's important for Black people to talk to Black people about experiences in MFA programs. I know someone recently who applied to some MFA programs, did not get in, and was discouraged and thought, oh, well, I guess writing's not for me. And I'm like, no, you're just getting started. You didn't get in because, you know, you're not there yet. There's so many writing workshops to take that are not degree programs that are wonderful. Lots of workshops. Catapult offers workshops. Gotham, Story Studios Chicago, The Porch in Tennessee. So take advantage of writing workshops that you can do virtually, and spend some time really thinking about if what you're looking for is validation. And if that's the case, that's not what the MFA is for. But people with MFA should speak to that more, I think.
I don't have an MFA, and I did the kitchen table MFA, and that is sitting with friends, learning from writers that were always being in a writing group, always, 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 and reformulating that group as I found that I was working harder than the other people in the group. Then I would get another one that would work me harder. No wine involved. So there's a way to get there. People will just tell you just got to keep writing.
Well, I know we've come up against time. I'm sorry we didn't get all the questions, but I want to thank each of you, Desiree Cooper, Brian Gilmore, Deesha Philyaw, for reading and sharing your work and your thoughts this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Love you guys.
Kimbies.
I wanted to say thank you all for attending the Dallas Literary Festival presented by SMU. We have two other events coming up in the next hour. Translating the Surreal, a conversation with Juan Cardenas and Lizzie Davis. And then we also have conversations with the infamous Charles Blow. So he's with one of our pastors and board of trustees, Richie Butler. So please join us for the next event. And again, I can't stress enough how important it is to go on over to DallasLiteraryFestival.org and purchase these wonderful books from our independent bookstores. Thank you, Cambilio Fiction. I'm so proud you're here and so proud to be part of this organization. Thanks, Renee. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Sandria.
Thank you.